Hello, my name is Tanya and I'm part of the Skoll Foundation team. I'm really excited to welcome you here to the Skoll World Forum session, Frontlines of the Climate Crisis, Fossil Fuel Resistance. As you may know, the forum's theme is closing the distance, and we thought there was no better way to reflect that theme than to invite our global network to design and build this event together. So we're so thrilled to be able to include this session and want to extend a special thank you to EarthRights International for proposing and designing it. I want to share a few quick items before we begin. This session is being recorded and will be released publicly after the event. Please feel free to use the chat to engage with each other and ask questions of the speakers. And the session is scheduled to end in 60 minutes. After the session, please take just a few seconds to complete the single question feedback survey and a poll that we'll post here at the end of the session. And on social media, we're using the hashtag SkollWF and would love for you to do the same. With that, I'd like to introduce our session host, Michelle Fanton from EarthRights International. Michelle, take it up.
Hi, welcome everybody. We are really excited, the team at EarthRights, to be sharing this session with you guys. I am joined by Keith Slack, who's our Director of Strategic Impact. He'll be moderating this session. We also have Hsaw, who's our Executive Director. And we have two community representatives joining us, Daris Cristancho from the Uwa community of Colombia, and then we have a pre-recorded video from our partners in Omkhoi, Thailand. So as we get started, I'm going to hand it over to Keith, who is going to take this forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you, Ashley. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session. I'm calling it on the phone. I'm unfortunately having some internet connection problems, but hopefully you can hear me okay. We are really happy to have you with us today for this important discussion on the front lines of the climate crisis, strengthening community resistance to fossil fuels. Thank you for being here, and thanks, of course, to the Skoll Foundation for the opportunity to discuss this critical issue. Before we get started, wanted to mention a couple of administrative issues. Pura, if you could show the slide relating to the interpretation. We will have one of our panelists speaking in Spanish. So if you need interpretation from Spanish to English, that's available. And I also say, para los que necesiten traducción del inglés al español, pueden aprovechar del servicio de interpretación por el botón en la parte de fondo de la pantalla. And as Ashley said, as we go along, please do put your questions in the chat. And also, if you want to, please introduce yourself with your name and your organization and where you're connecting from. That would be great. Okay, so next slide, Puro. So just wanted to give a quick overview of what we'll be talking about in our session today. First, we'll sort of have a stage setting of kind of what's happening to communities who are on the front lines of the climate crisis resisting fossil fuels. We'll hear from three speakers. I'll introduce them more in a second, but they're from Myanmar or Burma, Colombia, and Thailand. Then we will share some information about some of the things that we organizationally are working on, along with many other organizations around the world, to support communities who are on the front lines of the climate crisis, and welcome thoughts and feedback and ideas on that and what other organizations are doing to address these issues. Then we'll have a bit of time for discussion, and then we'll share some additional sources. So that's a little bit of what we'll be talking about today. So let's go to the next slide, please, Puro. Just to give us sort of an overview. I'm sure this information is familiar to many of the folks who are with us on this panel and joining us for the conversation. But the issue we want to talk about today is how organizations and concerned individuals around the world can support the efforts of communities, particularly indigenous peoples, to resist the development of fossil fuel projects and support more sustainable alternatives. As the climate crisis intensifies, we know we need to rapidly accelerate our transition away from fossil fuels, and therefore the struggles of communities to protect their land, water, and other resources against fossil fuels are even more important and take on a critical global dimension. We also know the ability of communities to say no to fossil fuel projects is coming increasingly under threat in many ways from repressive means employed by governments, corporations, and criminal operations. And this is happening all around the world, including the United States. We'll talk in this session about some of the ways that this is happening, and most importantly, what can be done about it, and how the international community and organizations in the global north can demonstrate good allyship and help close the distance with organizations and communities who are on the front lines of the struggle to save our planet. So before we turn to our panel, we wanted to do a quick poll just to get a sense of how familiar people are with these issues, and we're sure that people are very familiar. But Piero, if you could launch the poll right now, that would be great. Okay. So these are the questions we're asking is, which of these are tactics that are used to repress climate activists? How are we doing on the results of the poll, Piero?
I think Ali has the control of them.
Yeah, we've got about 40 out of 50 responded.
Okay. And of course, the answer to that question in the poll is all of the above. So all of those tactics are being used now to repress climate activists, from slap lawsuits, other kinds of harassments, to actually targeted killings of activists who are involved in opposing fossil fuel projects. So it's quite a worrying scenario, but one in which we think there are important actions that can be taken in support of communities who are, again, on the front lines. Okay, so let's turn to our panel, and let me introduce the panelists. So Piero, if you could go to the first slide with the nice picture of Hsaw, that would be great. So just to introduce quickly our panelists, our first panelist is Hsaw, who is executive director and founder of EarthRights International. Hsaw is from the Karen Indigenous community of Myanmar, or Burma. He's been an activist for more than 25 years in addressing human rights and environmental impacts of fossil fuel projects in his native Myanmar, or Burma, a country which once again, unfortunately, has descended into military repression and violence, much of which is financed by fossil fuel revenues. Next slide, please, Piero. The next panelist is Daris Cristancho, who is from the Uwa Indigenous community of Colombia. For more than 20 years, the Uwa have resisted the presence of fossil fuel companies on their territory, which has made them the targets of violence by guerrilla and paramilitary groups and by the Colombian military. Last year, Uwa leader Joel Aguablanca was assassinated by the Colombian military. Colombia is the deadliest country in the world for land and environmental activists, including indigenous peoples. Last year, more than 300 activists were killed by armed actors, including guerrilla groups, paramilitaries, and criminal gangs. The UA are currently seeking justice for the harms their community has suffered in a groundbreaking case at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. And then our final panelist, who will be appearing by pre-recorded video, is Duangjai Wongsathong from the Karen people of Khoi, Thailand. In recent years, Duangjai and fellow members of the Karen community in Khoi have resisted the development of a new coal project, expressing their concerns about potential impacts of the mine on land and water, and on the climate. Activists who are part of the Khoi anti-coal network have been subject of threats from governmental authorities and had defamation charges brought against them by the company that is seeking to build the mine. Thailand's National Human Rights Commission found violations linked to the mining operation. So with those introductions, I'd like to turn to the panel and have Hsaw start us off. So Hsaw, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Keith, and thank you very much to all of you who joined this our discussion here. Again, my name is Hsaw, and I'm current Indigenous from Burma, and I was born and raised in Burma until 1988, when I was forced to flee. And I participated in the democracy movement, and which was very much like what happening now. Now, over 700 people killed because of the movement. And I experienced violence in the first hand. My friends and demonstrators were shot and killed on the street because of we opposed military dictatorship. And I was arrested and tortured and forced to flee the country and go to the jungle for the safety. There where I witnessed so many human rights abuses associated with exploitation of natural resources. My current community who live in the jungle, who live in the very rich in natural resources, they were raped, they were tortured, they were killed, villages were destroyed, they were taken as slaves, forced to carry ammunition supply for military, while military taking security for US oil and a French oil company that building a pipeline. I was so upset to see and witness all those injustice. It was already very difficult to struggle against a military dictatorship, but also very powerful cooperation. So I was looking for a solution in 1990, in early 1990, I met two American law students who shared the same vision. And we believe that nobody should be able to profit from human rights abuses anywhere in this world. Together, we decided to start an organization called EarthRights International because we believe human rights and environment cannot be separated. Our mission is to combine the power of law, the power of people in defense of human rights and environment. Luckily, in 1994, we got $35,000 grant for Echoing Green to start our EarthRights International in 3 people with small little office in Thailand. Now we have more than 70 staffs in 5 countries that we have our offices. EarthRights International is not a project-based organization. We take time to build our trust, and we join struggle with Indigenous people and Frontline community who are facing threat and abuses coming from corrupted military, government, and corporation. It is so important that these communities and Indigenous people have their own power to defend themselves. It is so important that they don't stand alone. It is so important that they link to the global network and global tools like international law and the global movement that we all get together so they can effectively fight at home as well as where the cooperation base. We have 3 strategies in our organization: training, legal, and campaign. For more than 20 years in our EarthRights School, we have been training community leaders, lawyers, and engage them to learn how to work together effectively. And then we help them to recognize, combining the difference of their power, their strength, and their expertise to defend their homeland and the climate change. And then we use law to enhance campaign and advocacy. And we use law to hold corporations that violate the rights of the community accountable. We represent community in Burma against US oil company Unical, now Chevron. We represented Peruvian indigenous community from Amazon against Occidental Petroleum. We represented Ogoni people from Nigeria against Shell. We brought those companies to the court of the United States. We beat them. We set legal precedent and we make them compensate for what they have done wrong. Unfortunately, they did not stop. They kept going for their bottom line. And today, they continue causing climate change. So our struggle continues. and we have to be united. In this era of climate urgency, we know that one main problem is fossil fuel company. The same company that EarthRights International and network and community have been fighting for 25+ years. These companies, they need to be stopped. The causing climate change is very, very a big portion that they are being part of. They have to listen to community. Community have been saying that enough is enough. This community are losing their land, their food and their water and their livelihood and their future because of climate change. At the same time, fossil fuel companies are benefiting from causing climate change. The community are strongly stand against them. It is not their privilege. They have to fight for their life and their livelihood. They are protecting their rights, their environment, and their livelihood. What they are doing is exactly how to protect climate change and Mother Earth. Look at the situation now. Chevron and Total are supporting Burmese military who killing its own civilian. They are pouring money into the army bank account. Why military is killing, destroying its own land, entire ecosystem, and destroying climate at the same time? This kind of abuses to people and planet is happening all over the world by fossil fuel companies. Even here in the United States, from Standing Rock to Boulder, Colorado, to Line 3 in Minnesota, the fossil fuel industry need to be held accountable. We need to stop them. The solution is urgently needed. One thing that kind of disturbing me is that there are a lot of organizations, groups, and individuals in the US and Europe looking for solution, discussion for solution, fighting for solution, but they don't seem to, I don't really see frontline community and indigenous people are being considered to be part of the solution. We cannot just look at a community as victim. EarthRights International, we have won many cases and many campaigns simply because of we work with community and the community leading the way. Community who close to the problem are also close to the solution. Community must be part of solution. In the same time, many communities that we are working with have a critical role to play to stop climate change. They are fighting coal, mining, damming, deforestation, trying to stop new exploration of natural gas and oil. We need all of their struggle to be successful. Those success will stop climate change, but some connection between the local and global communities are kind of missing. The frontline community and the global community, their connection need to be strong. They are fighting alone. They don't see themselves as a climate defender. In response, we EarthRights International trying to organize our alumni, our lawyers, our networks, and their community to understand the struggle is part of the global struggle. Their struggle is global struggle is there. In climate situation, in climate problem, it is not a problem between academic, activists, and company. It is all of our issue, all of our problem. Unless we come together, we will not be able to stop it. That is why we need each other. So please let's come to agreement that we need each other and we can hold our hand together to save our Mother Earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hsaw, for those powerful words and that testimony. We're now going to turn to Daris. Just a reminder, Daris will speak in Spanish, so if you need the translation or interpretation, please activate that now. Go ahead, please, Daris.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Daris Cristancho, Guanuwa-Rawiriuwa, pertenezco a la nación y el pueblo indígena Uwa, que está ubicado al oriente de Colombia. Mi comunidad somos 7.500 habitantes, estamos en 3 organizaciones que Ascatidar, Ori, Azoua, que es mi organización, he venido haciendo un proceso de lucha y resistencia desde muy niña, porque veía de que mi comunidad y mi pueblo necesitaban de ese liderazgo, además de que mi comunidad se caracteriza por ser las mujeres las que emprenden el proceso de lucha y defensa y resistencia. Desde niña vi que se violaban muchos derechos y por eso empecé a hacer esa lideresa que hoy soy con mis años de experiencia. He estado allí con las autoridades tradicionales, con mis abuelos, con los ancianos, donde hemos tenido que empezar un proceso de lucha y resistencia para defender nuestros derechos, para defender nuestro territorio, nuestra madre tierra, para defender todas las riquezas que ella nos da, porque nosotros sin nuestra madre tierra no somos nada. Por esta razón, nuestra comunidad indígena, a través de esa exigencia a nivel nacional, a nivel internacional, empezamos a enfrentarnos con las multinacionales y en ese entonces con la Occidental de Colombia, cuando entró a desalojarnos de nuestras tierras, a quitarnos de allí, porque ellos no podían hacer una extracción de esos recursos de nuestra madre tierra que nosotros decimos ruiría. Ruiría es el petróleo de la sangre de nuestra madre tierra. Ella es la que le da vida, le fortalece. Ella es la que hace que las plantas, los ríos y todo puedan estar en una estabilidad. Hay un equilibrio que hay entre la tierra, nuestra madre tierra y todo el cosmos, toda la parte ambiental, toda la parte natural. Sira, nuestro padre Sira nos dejó a cada cosa para que lo cuidáramos. Cada cosa está en su lugar y por eso es que nuestras comunidades indígenas del pueblo y la nación Uwa hemos estado en resistencia, en lucha para que podamos llevar ese mensaje a nivel nacional e internacional, donde podamos decirle cuál fue la tarea que Sira Padre nos encomendó para que no dejésemos sacar los recursos como es el petróleo, la sangre de la madre tierra, porque nosotros en nuestra cosmovisión, primero Sira nos dejó que teníamos que dar y llevar el mensaje al mundo para que ella fuera respetada, valorada, fuera protegida por nosotros que somos sus hijos, porque es nosotros si no tenemos una madre, pues no podemos existir porque no tenemos quien nos cuide. Y también en la resistencia de nuestras comunidades es que en la parte espiritual nosotros hacemos todos los ayunos, todos los años para darle vida, darle armonía a nuestra madre tierra, a la naturaleza, porque nosotros somos una cuestión de un equilibrio natural. Si no podemos estar sin ella, no podemos estar sin todas las cosas que nos da nuestra madre tierra y por eso es que hacemos los ayunos todos los años para dar agradecimiento, para que ella pueda sentirse protegida por sus hijos, que ella también lo necesita como nosotros. Y la sangre que es ruiría, si nosotros nos sacamos la sangre de nuestro cuerpo, nosotros vamos a morir. Igualmente que ella también está resistiendo y está esperando que todos sus hijos puedan protegerla. Nuestras comunidades esto lo han venido sufriendo con amenazas, porque hemos tenido muchas amenazas, hemos tenido pérdida de nuestros líderes, hemos estado enfrentando todo esto lo hemos llevado a la Corte Interamericana para que seamos escuchados, para que nuestros derechos sean escuchados y que nuestras tierras, nuestros territorios, los ríos, los nevados, el Sisuma pueda estar en armonía con nosotros. Pero de no ser así, nuestras leyes de origen, nuestras exigencias, nuestro pensamiento cultural no ha sido escuchado y no puede ser respetado. Entonces, en este sentido, nosotros hemos tenido que sacrificar nuestros líderes y hace 6 meses fue asesinado un compañero indígena, un líder indígena por fuerzas militares. Y esto para nosotros es gravísimo, porque nadie puede atentar contra la vida de nadie. CIRA es el único que puede determinar la existencia de nosotros. También el daño que están haciendo las empresas multinacionales, las empresas extractivas, cuando se está contaminando toda la parte ambiental, se está destruyendo ese ecosistema. Ya no hay, las aguas están contaminadas, los ríos, las montañas, los animales, la misma especie humana está siendo contaminada. Entonces, en este sentido, nosotros hemos viajado por el mundo diciendo de que iba a llegar ese problema del cambio climático, que iban a haber muchas dificultades en cuanto a la conservación y el cuidado ambiental. Y esto está pasando por todo el mundo. Pero nosotros siempre decimos que la humanidad no va a poder resistir con solamente tener el dinero, tener la plata, tener los recursos, porque nosotros no podemos comprar muchas cosas, no la podemos comprar. No podemos comprar a que la madre tierra pueda resistir con dinero. El dinero, podemos tener miles y miles de millones que nosotros no vamos a poder comprar la misma vida, como la subsistencia, la resistencia en esta madre tierra. Eso para nosotros es muy difícil pensarlo y siempre hemos dicho, porque estuvimos diciendo que íbamos a un suicidio colectivo. Nosotros preferíamos morir antes de ver a nuestras tierras, ver a nuestra madre tierra destruida totalmente. Porque nosotros sí nos comunicamos con los seres espirituales, con los seres de la parte cosmológica de nuestra cultura. Y ellos han hablado de cómo seguir protegiendo la madre tierra. Y no podemos permitir que esto suceda porque sí estamos pensando en nuestros hijos, en nuestras futuras generaciones, porque no le estamos dejando nada para ellos. Esto es de resistencia y pido que todos nos unamos, los pueblos indígenas nos podamos unir para exigir el respeto por ella, el respeto por la madre tierra y que podamos nosotros luchar en conjunto, todos los pueblos a nivel del mundo, nos unamos para exigir que la madre tierra sea respetada y que no sea violentada como lo vienen haciendo. Que nosotros los indígenas somos los guardianes de la madre tierra, los defensores, las autoridades ambientales somos nosotros los indígenas. Y por esta razón hemos seguido y vamos a seguir luchando con dignidad, con la cabeza en alto y la frente en alto para decir que nosotros preferimos morir dignamente antes de ver morir a nuestra madre tierra.
Thank you, Daris, very much for that powerful testimony. So now we're going to see a pre-recorded video from Duangjai from Khoi, Thailand. So Carol, please go ahead and do the video.
The Khoi coal mine will affect our area if it is built. Hello, my name is Duangjai Wongsathong. I am from the Kaberdeen village in Khoi district, Chiang Mai, Thailand. In the past, there was no electricity in our village, so we asked the government for essential utilities. Unfortunately, we got the coal mine project instead. Here, We are Pokaren. We've been here for 4 generations. Most of us earn a living from agriculture. We grow rice, tomato, pumpkin, and we also do crop rotation. The company claims to conducting a community consultation in 2009, but only a few villagers even knew about this, and it was only the local government leaders involved. I want to say, please stop this mining project. We are worried we'll lose our land, homes, and our livelihood. If the soil is destroyed, we can't use it for farming. We depend on natural water for our traditional way of life. The forest here helps retain water and makes the land fertile. If the mine is built, that will no longer be the case. When we began our campaign, we submitted a complaint to the government. Then we spoke up through marches and campaigns around the Amkhoi district. We wanted to create awareness among local people about why we don't need this mine. On February 14, 2020, our community in Caberdeen and the surrounding communities ran a forest ordination ceremony. We brought together all 3 religious groups here: Buddhists, Christians, and animists. We vowed to preserve this sacred forest to protect our next generation's future. Local women lead the campaign against the Amkhoi anti-coal mine because we care very much about the well-being of our families and communities. If we don't stand up for our rights, who will fight for us? We have to be brave. EarthRights International, partnering with lawyers, academic professors, and NGOs, has been working with the community to support our fight against the Amkhoi coal mine. We work with EarthRights closely to collect and communicate data. We participated in many capacity-building workshops about research, campaign strategy, human rights defenders, and security. Their support has been essential in preventing the company from building the mine. On the World Environmental Day in 2019, Amkhoi people gathered to campaign in front of the Amkhoi district office. 2 locals who spoke on stage have been sued for defamation by the company for gathering and disseminating anti-coal mine information. Both men denied the charges as their speech was an expression of rights and freedoms per our Thai constitution. There is intimidation. Some of the local people are frightened. On April 26, 2019, the Department of Primary Industries and Mines requested their Amkhoi office to survey local people's opinions for setting up a public hearing. The local people disagreed. It seems they just wanted to push through a rushed EIA. In September 2019, we stopped the attempted first public hearing. More than 2,000 people attended on the day and campaigned, so the company couldn't run it as planned. If the public hearing had been allowed, it would have led to a flawed EIA. Then the company would have been able to start the mine construction. There are many mistakes in the EIA. The company created a false document. The local communities didn't get information on the project or a chance to participate. For the local people, the only solution for this problem is to stop the mine. We will do everything in our power. Our main goal is to stop the mine, and we will stop it for sure.
ก็ขอสวัสดีนะคะสวัสดีหมู่มั่งคุริบุกเนาะพี่แป้งจะได้เลย
Okay, thank you, Duangjai, in absence from Umkoi, for that powerful commentary and sharing the story of the communities in Umkoi and their struggle against coal mining. We are receiving a few questions in the chat. Thank you for those. We'll have a second, we'll have some time for some discussion and conversation and questions with the panelists in a second. I wanted to turn now, though, to a bit of presentation and discussion around some of what we as EarthRights see as the potential solutions and some of the actions that need to be taken to address some of the problems that we've seen highlighted by the speakers and in the video. Pura, if you could turn to the first slide relating to criminalization of protest. First of all, we think that there's, and these reflect our views as EarthRights, but in working in collaboration with many organizations around the world who are also supporting this work. First of all, fighting the criminalization of protest, which was a theme that came through in the discussions and the presentations. We're fighting for the legal recognition of the right of communities to protest and to oppose projects. And that includes legal defensive activists, fighting against SLAP lawsuits, strategic lawsuits against public participation, fighting anti-protest laws, which are increasingly coming into effect in various places, including the United States, and opposing the militarization of responses to protests, which we've seen in many situations around the world. Next slide, please, Pure. We also believe that supporting community activist training is critically important. So helping strengthen the capacity of communities to defend their rights and ensure they're respected through training in anti-criminalization tactics so they can avoid being criminalized in the first place, cyber and physical security, and creating safe spaces for convenings in global solidarity networks. Next slide, please. Supporting frontline climate communities is also critically important, we believe, in fighting the rollbacks of community protections. Right now, in the name of post-COVID-19 recovery, there are efforts in various places to weaken regulations that require consultation, that require environmental impact assessment, all in the name of trying to speed up projects, including fossil fuel projects, and promote economic recovery. We think that is very concerning and problematic, and we need to push back on that. And importantly, making sure that that the protected areas and indigenous land rights are respected, and mechanisms set up to protect those aren't weakened, again, in the name of trying to facilitate new projects. Next slide, Pura, please. And then finally, keeping the pressure on the fossil fuel companies, we think is critically important as communities on the front lines are working to defend their communities and resist fossil fuel projects. It's important, obviously, also to keep pressure on the companies themselves by amplifying community voices, pushing for accountability for damage to the climate that companies have caused, and ending financing for fossil fuels from international financial institutions, private banks, et cetera, and then ensuring proper climate risk disclosure. There needs to be an accurate and transparent accounting of the potential risk to the climate of new fossil fuel projects that potentially would go forward. So these are some of the things that we think as an organization need to take place, and we work with many other organizations, as I said, and welcome feedback and views and thoughts and reactions to these. So next slide, please, Puro. So now we have some time for some discussion and some questions. I think there have been some questions in the chat. that we can respond to and share with our panelists, mainly, obviously, Hsaw and Daris. I might start off myself actually asking a question of Hsaw. Hsaw, as someone who is both from an affected community and representing an international organization, what do you think are the most important roles that international organizations can play in support of affected communities? And I might ask that same question also to Darius. What sort of support, what kind of actions are most useful to help support your community, and what would you like to see in terms of solidarity and support from international organizations? So maybe just to sort of start off, I would put those questions to both of you.
Thank you, Keith. I mean, that is very exactly what I said in my talk, is that, you know, the frontline community and indigenous community, a lot of times they are working in their coal mining or different project, or they're different, but they do not see themselves, or they do not, I do not want to use the word, they do not associate the importance of working together with a global movement. So I think in that perspective, it's very important for them to, like, a different community know their struggle is global struggle. So in that case, international NGO, international individual, international community could help out with way of, I don't know, exchange, education, training, and make them understand the importance of how global and local need to be connected and understand, and they are struggling, it's all our struggle in the global level. So in that case, you know, it could be really helpful for the community as well as, you know, dealing with our corporation. But at the same time, a lot of time, EarthRights is dealing with making the local people, community, indigenous people understand corporate culture of how corporate could do things. And those information that a lot of time indigenous and the community, they do not have those information. So giving them those information is very important for them to use as a tool and understand those issues and how to defend themselves, or how to, you know, fight for themselves. So in that case, all combination of how global need local to make their voice, and also the force of movement strong and vice versa. You know, the community and local can use global movement and global information to strengthen their campaign activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Hsaw. Darius, do you have any thoughts on that question?
Sí, la parte en la cual me gusta mucho la pregunta, porque yo creo que nosotros hemos venido resistiendo ante todas estas amenazas de las que se han venido dando, porque hemos tenido esa valentía de salir a divulgarlo con el apoyo de muchas organizaciones, ONGs. Hemos ido a divulgar y a decirle a nuestros aliados, a los que están comprometidos con la conservación, el cuidado de nuestra madre tierra y a la no extracción de hidrocarburos, para que se solidaricen a través de incidir, de como extender toda esta situación que está pasando dentro de nuestras comunidades indígenas. Ha sido una fortaleza para nosotros poder desmantelar a Magallanes. Cuando quitaron a Magallanes de nuestro territorio fue porque hubo una incidencia a nivel internacional de muchas organizaciones aliadas estratégicas para que fuera escuchado nuestras peticiones, y así logramos nosotros sacar a la Occidental y a Magallanes de nuestro territorio. Pero esto no quiere decir que vienen otras amenazas, que es como Morfeo 1 y Morfeo 2, que son proyectos que son nuevos proyectos que vienen para nuestras comunidades indígenas, donde van a empezar a hacer otra vez la perforación de nuestro territorio, de nuestra madre tierra. Pero esto se logra siempre y cuando tengamos la solidaridad de nuestros hermanos a nivel internacional, a nivel nacional, a nivel local, regional, porque se coloca una sola voz, la voz de los pueblos indígenas, la voz de nuestros hermanos campesinos, de nuestros hermanos que están en otros países, pero que también están pidiendo de que sean respetados los derechos de los pueblos indígenas y de los derechos de todo el ser humano como tal, y el derecho de nuestra madre tierra. Entonces, sí se puede tener mucho apoyo desde diferentes lugares, escribiendo, estando en alerta para que todo esto se pueda prolongar o se pueda divulgar a nivel mundial. Y yo creo que cada voz de cada persona, de cada organización, de cada una de las fundaciones, se puede extender a nivel del mundo para que seamos escuchados y que toda esta noticia pueda ser relucida a nivel del mundo, porque nosotros a veces no tenemos esos medios para poder nosotros divulgar. Somos en nuestras comunidades, no hay energía, no hay radio, no hay televisión, no hay internet, y lo tenemos que hacer a través de nuestras organizaciones, así como lo ha hecho Eric, que ha venido apoyando incondicionalmente Amazon Watch, Forest, que ellos han venido escuchando al pueblo Uwa y han venido haciendo ese acompañamiento a través de las divulgaciones y a través de llevar nuestro acompañamiento a los casos ante la corte, ante las demandas al nivel del Estado.
Thank you very much, Daris. So we have some more questions coming in on the chat. Thank you for those. One question was, is there also an ERI school for community activists in Latin America? The answer to that is yes. We have one that's called the Indigenous Legal Seminar, which is a 2-week program that we run every year in partnership with local Indigenous organizations from across the region. And we invite them to come work with our team, learn about different legal tactics, other sorts of campaigning tactics, and other ways to strengthen the work that they're doing. So that's been quite a successful program over the past several years. We're interested to expand that and try and bring more Indigenous leaders into it, the ones that are interested, because there is such a strong need, we think, and that's been expressed by the organizations that we work with and the local communities for that kind of support. So it's something that our team in the Amazon, which is based in Lima, Peru, has been working very actively on for the past several years, and something we think is a successful model and one that we're trying to expand and potentially replicate. So we have a few other questions in the chat. Maybe Ali, do you want to read out a couple, and we can see if Hsaw or Darius can respond?
Sure. So I've got one for Hsaw, and then Pierre will read one out for Darius. So Hsaw, the question is from Guy about what's the biggest challenge you're facing as an organization?
The biggest challenge is that, in particular, the country that we are operating, where the Mekong region and Amazon, the political space for doing things is very, very difficult. For instance, if you look at the Mekong region, pretty much every single government is so brutal. Like if you look at China, if you look at Burma, military, in Thailand, state military, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, we all know that those are the most difficult things. So it's very difficult for us to openly fight, but that's why we have to manage, and help community to stand by themselves. So in that case, EarthRights International came up with many different ideas. For instance, one of the things that we do in the community that in the special economic zone in Burma and as well as other region is we call CDOGM. community-driven grievance mechanism, operational grievance mechanism, because everybody knows here, when it came to operational grievance mechanism, corporation will do that by themselves, and when they do that, they only looking at the bottom line. So in that case, nothing happened or nothing good for community. So in that case, we are helping, we are working together with community for them to be able to collect those data by themselves and create those operational grievance mechanism by themselves. And those things are becoming very, very successful. But in the same time, you know, as I mentioned, community to understand what their issue, what they are fighting is important and to be global. For instance, in November, December last year, within virus situation, we opened our school in Thailand for the community in Thailand that who are facing coal mining and coal company, you know, power plant and stuff like that. And after they came to us, they understand their movements cannot be alone in Thailand. Therefore, they want to bring out regional and as well as international, and they asked us to do that. So in that training, we work together with a couple of individuals, Greenpeace, and we work together with other organizations for sure. But the thing is, as Western countries are, you know, are blocking and stopping coal mining, but now what happened is countries like China, countries like Thailand, they are investing in the coal and they are doing all those projects in Mekong region. And we need to find a way to fight and organize people to be part of the whole movement and to work together. Again, to make your answer to be short is political situation that extremely, extremely small, and as well as the retaliation is extremely, extremely large, and people can be in trouble in those countries that I mentioned. People disappear, people get in jail. So in that case, we have to come up with many different tactics. Those things are very, very difficult.
Thanks, Hsaw. I'll pass it to Piero for a question for Daris.
Bueno, Daris, hola a todos y a todas. Daris, tenemos una pregunta para ti de Joel Kuhn de Lingo. Él dice, Daris, muchas gracias por compartir. Yo siempre menciono que los Hsaw consideran el petróleo como la sangre de la madre tierra y me gustaría entenderlo más. ¿Cómo funciona eso? ¿Hay otras formas de explicarlo? Por ejemplo, para un ingeniero petrolero o para explicarlo a otras comunidades que aún no comparten esta creencia. Y también quiere saber qué dicen los chamanes al respecto. Son 4 preguntitas para ti.
Sí, para nuestra cosmología y nuestra cultura uwa, el petróleo es la sangre de nuestra madre tierra, porque para nosotros el planeta Tierra es una mujer que tiene todas sus, así como una persona, tiene sus músculos, tiene sus venas, tiene todos los órganos para que ella pueda sobrevivir. Y entonces la sangre, que es el petróleo, está dentro del sistema del cuerpo de nuestra madre tierra, y ella cumple la función, la vitalidad de generar en ella que pueda resistir, subsistir a todo lo que se pueda tener para ella correlacionarse con mantener el equilibrio del planeta. Por esta razón, para nosotros no se puede atentar contra la vida de ella, porque si le sacamos el petróleo, la tierra, igualmente nuestra madre, se va volviendo estéril, se va debilitando y se va volviendo que ya ella no va a poder seguir manteniendo la vida del planeta. Por esta razón es que en todos los sitios donde se saca, se extrae el petróleo, la tierra queda ya no es fértil, ya se esteriliza todo el sistema de ella y ella va muriendo lentamente, se van secando los ríos, ya no hay vegetación, ya no hay animales y esto hace de que se vaya extinguiendo la vida en esos lugares. Y si nosotros no hacemos nada por eso, vamos a morir con ella. ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros estamos matándola, la estamos dejándola debilitada, que ella no pueda seguir dándonos y brindándonos todo lo que ella nos da, los alimentos, los animales, el agua, el mismo aire, todo lo estamos acabando. Por esta razón, nuestras autoridades tradicionales, desde un principio, cuando hubo la vida, hubo la existencia del ser humano, Cira nos dijo que qué teníamos que hacer y cómo teníamos que protegerla, cómo teníamos que conservarla, que nosotros debíamos tomar lo necesario de nuestra madre tierra, sin destruir los ríos, sin destruir las selvas, sin destruir las montañas, sin destruir nada, porque para eso ella nos daba ese privilegio de que nosotros pudiéramos tomar de ahí lo necesario. Y por eso para nosotros la tierra no se puede vender, no se puede cambiar, no se puede dañar. Todo lo que nosotros hacemos, lo hacemos pidiendo un permiso para con la madre tierra, porque ella es un ser vivo, un ser que está ahí con nosotros para cuidarnos y para protegernos. Entonces, esa es la concepción de nuestra cultura, de nuestras comunidades indígenas uvas y creo que de muchos pueblos indígenas a nivel del mundo. También no nos hemos encontrado, pero desde la parte cosmológica y desde la visión, yo creo que son muy similares en cuanto a todo la existencia del planeta. Y para nosotros, por eso decimos el planeta azul. Cascaica, Siratisqueno, Obiriasquina Cubuijar. En UWA estoy diciendo de que Cira nos mandató, nos reglamentó para que la cuidemos y la protejamos. Y yo creo que en nosotros como personas cuidamos siempre de nuestra madre, de nuestra mamá que nos dio la vida. No atentamos contra ella. Y tampoco podemos atentar con la madre tierra, porque ella es la que nos protege, la que nos da vida, la que si la cuidamos bien, no van a haber huracanes, no van a haber desastres, no van a haber terremotos, no va a haber esa contaminación ambiental, ni tampoco el cambio climático que nos está azotando cada día más. Y a veces decimos, ¿por qué está pasando tantas cosas en el mundo? Pues porque la madre tierra se está despertando y está haciendo de que sus hijos recapaciten y vuelvan a tomar toda la visión, la misión que nosotros tenemos de protegerla y cuidar, si queremos dejar una buena regalo para nuestros hijos y para nuestras futuras generaciones.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Daris, go ahead.
En cuanto a la parte de la ingeniería industrial como tal, yo sé que para el Estado y para todos los ingenieros de petróleos es sacar, porque esa da economía, da plata. Pero si pensamos bien, con la plata no va a vivir el hombre si no tiene el planeta azul vivo. Si no tiene nuestra madre tierra, no va a subsistir. Tendría que buscar otro planeta para irse a vivir en otro espacio, porque así como vamos, nuestra madre tierra va a morir y nosotros los humanos vamos a desaparecer.
Okay, thank you very much, Darius. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this session. We won't be able to get to all the questions. There were some great questions about how people can help, and I think the short answer to that is support local organizations, community organizations like Darius, and the organizations in Thailand that are involved in these struggles. And feel free to get in touch with us, and we can happy to provide more ideas and suggestions on that question. Before we go, just wanted to share, if you could show the slide, please, Piero, of some additional resources. These are other organizations and resources that are available that are working in this space, and have a lot of good information and ideas and thoughts about how we can potentially collaborate. So we need to wrap here. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you in particular to Daris and Hsaw and Duangjai for being panelists with us. We will wrap the session now. Just a reminder to please rejoin the hop-in for the rest of the Skoll World Forum, and we'll talk soon. We look forward to being in touch with everybody on these issues. So thank you very much.